Hey, Ryan O'Connor here, and in this video we're going to be talking about how to build an onboarding process for your high-level agency. So stay tuned, and we're going to cover off sort of three main things. One is how do you correctly prepare people to be onboarded into your system, your software, and your service layer. How are you preparing them? What items of homework are you going to give them? How soon from when they sign up to when they start working with you are they going to get in to see you, and what do you want them to do, and what do you expect from them in the first sort of 1, 7, and 30 day milestones working with you. And that's really important because you don't need to think about what you have to do. You can reframe your relationship with customers so that there's a mutual expectation on both parties, and both parties, you the vendor, they the user, are 100% invested in achieving the outcomes that they want to achieve through using you, your product, and your services. So that's number one. Number two, if you're still here, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video. But number two is setting the expectations on, how they're going to work with you, right? Like, what are we going to do when we see you? We're going to get on Zoom, right? For instance, right? Which is a very common way to onboard people into software these days. And we share the screen. They share their screen and we lead them by showing. We don't do it for them. And, with GoHighLevel's latest releases, we're able to do some very cool things around updating custom values that we couldn't do before, which make that process so much more automated, so much more efficient. And of course, GoHighLevel have just released support in the SaaS configurator for both authorized.net and NMI as a result of their hard work and dedication to, expanding beyond just the default, which has been Stripe for so long. And then of course, the third thing that we really want to touch on is the calendar system, right? Like, how do you actually build the calendar system to work in your favor? And there's so many cool switches and levers that you can turn on or off in the calendar system that gives you so much power and control on how you build out your onboarding process, how you want to structure your human resources and labor within the customer success team. And that is the bulk of this video. We're going to be focusing on the things that we do in the calendar system that give us so much control in this process. So in order to do this, we're going to have to dive into the screen share, sit back, relax. I'm going to dive straight into it right now. And if you do like this tutorial, please give me a like, please give me a subscribe. All your support is extremely, extremely valuable to me. And of course, if you want Growthable to do all of this for you, simply go to growthable.io/pricing and you'll see that there's a package for everyone at every stage, whether you're starting out or whether you've got 10,000 sub accounts and you're winning the Platinum Awards at Dallas each and every year. So stay tuned, stay with me, jumping into the screen share right now. Calendars for onboarding. There's a lot of calendar education and knowledge in this video as well. I hope you like it. It is a bit of a long one, 20 odd minutes or so strap in. I'm going to try to explain every element in as much detail with as much context as I possibly can. So if you're looking at building a brand new onboarding process for your brand new agency, or you're an established agency looking to revamp your onboarding process, this video is for you. Stay tuned. Hope you like it. Work less, profit more. Hey guys, Ryan here, and in this installment we're going to be looking at the calendar setup. Right now, this video I made for demonstrating the ideal calendar configuration for new users who have subscribed to your agency, and the purpose of this video was to really give you a sense of the types of settings that I would use when creating an onboarding calendar like we do with Growthable clients. So the first thing is that you're an agency, okay? So we're thinking about, you having software subscribers, right? People that are subscribing to use a tool. So let's take a look at how I would set this up, and I'll explain a few things along the way. So let's create a calendar. The type of calendar that I would use here is a round robin. Now, I've always used a round robin type calendar, even though in the round robin calendar, you can select multiple people even if you've got a calendar that you've only got one user being allocated the meetings of the calendar, I would still use a round robin calendar. As of 30th of October, they did improve the one-on-one calendar type, which was previously named unassigned, right? So I think they've sort of cleaned that up. It's now been improved. It's now called sort of one-on-one meeting. But the point of this is that if you build a calendar, you're going to have this link to this calendar kind of in many places. So the idea is that if you just create the round robin from day one, even if it's just you doing the onboarding and you don't have multiple people doing the onboarding, then when you do take on more than one staff member, you can just go in and add them to the calendar. You don't have to recreate the entire calendar system when you add more staff. So little hack in terms of future-proofing your onboarding system. So first thing you want to do is give it a name. So this is going to be onboarding session 1. Now, I recommend that you break up onboarding into 2 sessions. One is a sort of an account build, right? More of a technical session where you're going to be running through some boring things, making things work. And then I suggest that the second session basically compounds and uses the fact that you've built out an account and then runs more of like a high-level overview, excuse the pun, and you're doing it with contextual data that you should be able to start working with as a result of doing the first session. So all of this should be fairly straightforward. You would just create an onboarding calendar 1, the meeting duration, I'm going to update to 60 minutes. The booking availability is based on the calendar, not the user. And there's obviously 3 levels of availability. You've got the user being assigned to the calendar, you've got the calendar itself, and then of course you've got the availability of the business, right? And the business might override the calendar availability. The user might override the calendar availability. So when we think about the calendar's availability, we can just leave it open, because the way that it's actually going to figure out who's available and when is going to be based on the team members that you've assigned. I'm just going to put myself in this one. Now, of course, we could accept electronic payments at this point, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to click confirm, and we're going to get this test calendar going. And of course, I'm going to put in the URL, which acts as the slug. And now I've created the calendar here. And so now we're going to just look at that test. And that was, let's bring up the latest calendar I just created. And here's one. Round robin. Meeting with Ryan, 30-minute calendar. Okay, there we go. So, it was buried somewhere deep. So anyway, so meeting details, of course, then you can update the user experience to add your logo and the description and those types of things. And of course, now we're down to the appointment distribution type. So if you add people here, of course, what it's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to pull in essentially what we call like an inheritance from the user's profile. So we've got me here, we've got my Zoom link, and I always use the same Zoom link. I don't actually put it down as a Teams address or a Zoom address or anything like that. I put it as a custom standard Zoom link. Now, this is me being kind of scarred from Zoom integrations breaking from time to time, having to come through and reauthorize that Zoom integration at any point. Whilst you're doing the reauthorization, the Zoom links aren't going to work. Now, this is probably more of a problem for likes of me who run, 1,000 onboarding calls a day. And so, any sort of time where there's being, a break in the connection to Zoom, it's causing massive amounts of issues because those users then aren't seeing which Zoom link they need to connect to. The other thing is that, of course, you can use, custom values and those types of things here, which is great. I leave mine at custom. And it's just worth noting that when you look at the advanced settings here, you can reassign the owner of the appointment at the time of somebody making the appointment, or you can use the round robin to reassign to the first available person. So by default, you might always assign new users to a particular staff member. They, like an appointment setter or SDR or somebody like that, that's going to vet them. What we want to do here is we want to say, no, we're going to reassign to the round robin, because whoever takes the appointment then in our organization then owns that contact. And so they become someone who's responsible to make sure that that customer is successful until they get reassigned to someone else in the customer success department. So we're going to keep it the assignment as whoever is being assigned to the appointment. You can, of course, do something different here. As it says, you can book with the assigned user versus using round robin scheduling. And of course, when we think about things like, if you were doing like a hairdresser or something like that, you always wanted to have the same person cutting your hair, then you're selecting based on the person or the service person being available to take the meeting versus the meeting choosing the service person, right? So it makes perfect sense as to why you would have one or the other in the context of onboarding. However, we're just going to keep it with one person, that's me, and then we're going to move to the next session here, which is around availability. And of course, we just talked about that. I'm going to let the individual staff members' availability drive availability, and I'm just going to open this up to be essentially 24/7, right? So I'm not available in my availability on Saturdays and Sundays. So even ticking them here is not going to mean that someone can get an appointment on those 2 days, because my availability, which is inherited by connecting them, will override it. Of course, we can do things like looking busy, setting up recurring meetings, and those types of things. This will be down to your own discretion. Again, in the context of onboarding, I don't think it makes sense. The interval, which is how frequently someone can make an appointment. So if this is set to 30 minutes, the first appointment availability is 1 hour. I will see I have an appointment available at 10 a.m. for 1 hour. So the next available appointment must be an available appointment for a 60-minute slot. Okay. Now, it's going to use the first 60 minutes and then go to the next interval available. So I would see 10 and then 11:30. After 11:30, I would see 12, and on we go, because I'm getting 30-minute increments. Okay. So what you can do is you can lower the interval to something like 15 minutes. So for instance, with our staff, we have onboarding people. They want to do an hour session with a break. If you left it at 30 minutes, you would be giving them too large a break, and they would only end up doing 4 onboarding calls in an 8-hour day. The way that we get around that is we reduce the meeting interval time, so the next time that they can take a meeting starts earlier. So for instance, in this case, we would see 10 o'clock to 11. The next one would start at 11:15 a.m. You can obviously use your own discretion and your own policies around your own staff if you're using VAs, or simply go and hire Growthable, growthable.io/pricing, off you go. But this is how we really drive our efficiencies here at Growthable. If we need to increase our capacity at any time, we can reduce the interval here, which allows us to take more appointments. So making slight changes here can actually make massive differences when you're working at higher volumes. And of course, we work at extreme kind of volume, I suppose, because we have hundreds and hundreds of agencies working with us on this every single day. Anyway, I digress. So use these scheduling tools to your advantage when building an onboarding process, right? Having the minimum scheduling notice and the date range is super important. You might cap the date range that someone can book an onboarding in when they become a subscriber to 15 days. And why would you do that? Well, you can basically use the capacity planning issue of being in business as a way to drive urgency to get them locked and loaded into their onboarding. And I would say no greater than 15 days for a new subscriber. Otherwise, you're going into a different billing cycle, and a new customer would say, I did nothing in my first billing cycle, refund me. So you want to remain in the same billing cycle, in the first billing cycle, to be sure that you're going to have a happy customer who, moves to month 2 and month 3. The minimum scheduling notice, of course, if you don't want to get caught off guard by someone booking in the same day, given that most companies now are completely global. For us, if we didn't have these controls in place, we would be getting, 2 o'clock in the morning appointments booked in, for instance. And, I stopped getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning some time ago after I put in the hard yards of, my first 12 months in a startup. So, I've now reduced my availability so that I get up like a normal human being and kind of get up, when I wake up like a normal person and go to bed when I'm tired. And so, I don't want to be surprised by someone booking in same day. And I think anybody booking in same day won't be prepared. So we spoke about, in the emails in which, we've sort of shared these videos, we speak about making sure that someone's prepared. So, we think, 3 to 5 business days of sending someone a checklist, making sure that they're prepared with the logins and tools that they need to onboard themselves, super important. The maximum number of bookings per day. Now, again, this is a control that you can use to really manipulate, the human resources that you got during your onboarding, right? So, for instance, the maximum number of onboardings that you'd probably want a human to do is about 6. Same session 6 times. That would easily, go beyond kind of like an 8-hour day. 8 hours of Zoom is pretty tiring. You lose your voice, all those types of things. So I look at, are you running any group calls? Should you do an office hours call like at least once a day, right? And then, all those types of things, the actual, fatigue of humans running these types of things is a real thing. And so, using those controls to make sure that the number of bookings per day is contained and there are boundaries around it is super important as well. Maximum number of bookings per slot. If this is a one-on-one type call with customers, of course, you want to keep that at 1 at all times. And we don't mess with pre and post buffer time. We find that, that really starts to skew, how you can sort of maintain control on the number of appointments that you do on a daily basis. However, if it is important that there are tasks to be done both pre and post call, which, in a lot of cases there are, then, you adding those in here would give you some sense of control. But I think the duality of using the interval plus the duration gives you enough control, but each to their own on that one. Moving through to forms and payments, of course, it's, super, easy then to just use the default form, but, you're doing an onboarding, right? So now with custom values being updatable, right? Then I believe that, everyone should be writing their own workflows to update custom values based on form submissions, which you can now issue through a high-level form, right? So if you haven't seen that and you have no idea what I'm talking about, if you go into the workflow builder, you'll now see that you can update a custom value, and that custom value could be the result of contact data which you receive through a form submission. So, we were using third-party tools to do this in the past, and now, of course, it requires the sub-account to exist and the contact record to exist within that sub-account. You can't just send it to a brand new subscriber that hasn't actually been assigned to an account anywhere. But if you're on SaaS mode, for instance, this is going to work perfectly. So you can now build an onboarding form with questions that you're going to update custom values with. And I think that is nothing short of awesome. Now, different media types might struggle here a little bit, but without having sort of fully tested all of those things myself, can't actually give you any indication of what the other sort of media types, like if it's a video file versus, an image file, et cetera, et cetera. I believe it's just handled through the form. The form understands what kind of media it is, stores it appropriately, and then gives you the file location as it stands in, Amazon S3 or Google Cloud or wherever it's coming from in HighLevel's backend. Again, digressing a little bit, moving forward from there. So build a form that updates custom values, because why wouldn't you? That form is going to be super useful. Ask them questions, get them to type things in, get them thinking about some homework they might need to do, add information in this form about, again, say when you're going to join up, here's a checklist, we sort of talk about this in one of the videos. Here's my onboarding call sort of checklist, device recommendations, make sure you've got an email signature ready to go, make sure you got your login information for these things, etc., right? So you could put that as a note on the form so that they were presented with that information as and when they were going through the onboarding form, right? Consent checkboxes, those types of things. These is great for tying back to terms and conditions, those types of things. You can use the onboarding process as a way to gate them, right? So they're going through gates of them consenting to things, right? Like the terms and conditions, the terms of use, privacy policy, and all those things could be thrown in there if you didn't want to do that prior to them checking out in their first payment. You could include more consent and checklists, all sorts of things here as they're going through that onboarding process. And again, it gives them more things to do and read to keep them busy for that sort of 3 to 5 day mark, which we think is kind of the best. Of course, you can then use pixels, which will be great for telling your Facebook conversions API, who's actually converting successfully, and then getting better return on your ad spend as a result of that. Of course, auto confirm new meetings. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And as we get to notifications and additional options, we're going to get some deep here. So, this has just been revamped as of Summit 2024. We're now 30th of October, as you can see. And so there's a bunch of defaults, right? So here's the default appointment booked notification, right? And that has always been something that you cannot change, right? And so, we can see here that, who's going to get this notification. It's the contact, the user who's been assigned that appointment, and then any additional emails will come through here as well. And so, here it is. Finally, you're able to manipulate this, and you're able to run a test for it, right? So, 30th October 2024, you can finally change the standard notification that goes out when an appointment's been confirmed in HighLevel. Of course, the time zone that was always coming through as was the time zone of the appointment owner. So you would have the time zone of the system, but then you would have the owner of the appointment basically getting these system generated notifications, right? So it was always the appointment time zone offset start time that was coming through, and that was confusing a lot of people for us. So we actually disable that and just let the reminder notifications that we've set up in our workflow to be the ones that everyone gets. Why do that? Basically, what that means is that the people receiving those notifications through your workflow builder will get time zone information in their time zone, meaning it will make sense to them, right? Now, when you do this 1,000 times a day, trust me, I see people complaining about looking at the notifications and trying to figure out what the time zone is for them. But because they're never in the system doesn't care or know what time zone you're in. It's just sending you notifications as an FYI. The FYI notification cares about only the users of the system or the person that's booked the appointment. So it is a sort of funny little thing that HighLevel does, but we live with it, and we now have way more control than ever, being able to finally edit that standard email with that green button that's been there forever, right, since day one. So that's really cool, and we're really excited about that. Cancellation notifications, of course, being able to enable those now is really cool, because prior to, again, summer 2024, cancellation notifications didn't exist. You canceled an appointment and it just disappeared out of the calendar and everybody went on with their lives, but no one ever knew what was going on, right? And so super frustrating when you have to get up early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning for a call, only to wake up with that being deleted out of your calendar, but you've set your alarm for 4:30 anyway, so go figure. Alrighty. Allowing Google and Outlook to send invitations, updates. So what does that mean? So basically, if you are on one of those platforms, which is pretty much everyone, it means, if I was to go into Google and like update the time of the appointment, then that would flow through to the appointment details, and it would actually update the attendees, right? So, there's an update action that can occur natively inside of Google and Outlook, and then you're allowing them to do it. Now, I don't use those personally. I try to drive everybody into using the high-level appointment system on my staff. We don't manipulate things in the native calendar system, i.e., Google Workspace or whatever you use. We find that can be problematic because you go from having one single source of truth to relying on synchronization. And I think if you're relying on synchronization, you are inevitably going to come up with errors. So we don't do that. Last but not least, we've got some cancellation and reschedule and policies, and this is great for onboarding because essentially what it means is, we can tell our new users that, we spoke about, being, there's limitations on how far in the future you can book, 15 days in advance, but you can't book same day. You can book, at least there's a minimum 24-hour notice so that we can see appointments coming and plan our day 24 hours in advance or next work day in advance. In addition to that, introducing policies around when they would be able to reschedule and or cancel is super handy and important too. So, I talk about the importance of somebody actually showing up and, reducing no-show rates to get to as close to zero no-shows is going to drive your revenue further. It's just a fact, right? Introducing policies around being able to not reschedule, within one day, right? And having that link pretty much expire will also drive better attendance rates or better use of time. So this is around efficiency, right? Meaning, you didn't turn up to a meeting and somebody rescheduled 5 minutes before the start time, right? So we've all been there. You arranged for someone to look after your kids. You moved heaven and earth to attend something only to find out 1 minute prior to the appointment that they've cancelled, which we never got a notification about before, or they've rescheduled, which we never used to get a notification about before. But now you can basically introduce these policies and you communicate these policies out to the end users, right? Last but not least, customization to make it look and feel the way you want to do it. Include the title, description, details, whatever else you want. I like including the details in the information. It just basically means that you have at a glance in that calendar entry exactly what's going on, what you're talking about, what time zone it's in, and all of that good stuff. You could, of course, update this with custom CSS to make it look however you want. Then at this point, we can kind of preview and off we go. We can kind of see what it's going to look like, right? Now, I haven't shown, what, I haven't, updated the colors or customized or anything like that, but that's, of course, what you can do. But little known thing, this is where you select the time zone to see what your availability is going to look like in the shoes of your audience, the time zones that they're in, making sure that you're updating that when you're testing out these availabilities. And of course, I just used a standard form, but we spoke about introducing checklists and these types of things before people schedule meetings. So I might have something below this box which says, make sure you're on a device that is not a phone. Make sure you're not on, the tube or a train or anything like that, that you're actually established to a solid Wi-Fi connection. So with all of that said, and I said it as fast as I possibly could, this is the way we think about building onboarding calendar systems for our own agency, for our clients' agencies. And of course, if you do like this instructional video, we've got plenty on our channel. Please like and subscribe. Also, if you just want Growthable to do this for you, we can do it for free by upgrading to $497 on HighLevel using our affiliate link below in the description, or subscribing to Growthable. Go to growthable.io, find a package that's suitable for you, and we will do this all for you anyway. I've been Ryan, stay frosty, and as always, work less, profit more.